The former government spokesperson, Ofwono Opondo, came out with big missile and told Nobert off concerning the speakership race. Ofwono Opondo came out to say that Nobert cannot be the Speaker of Parliament, and he gave these reasons. Here's the tape.
I have seen my other very long-standing friend, Honorable Nobert expressing interest. Unfortunately, he has 6 members. I don't see how NRM can give somebody who has 6 members, who has really taken his party to a ditch. Nobert has taken DP to a ditch. Yes, he has some cooperation agreement with President Museveni, but I don't think that's sufficient. There's nothing Nobert is bringing new on the table. I have seen him speak as if he is the political heir to Little Line. I have seen him speak about balancing the vote. Mao cannot tell NRM how to balance our vote of Uganda. We're the ones in charge. We're the ones who are going to determine how we balance the vote. And we shall balance that vote by, first of all, having a disciplined, loyal, and competent speaker from the NRM from Trinity. We have no problem if they expressed interest formally when NRM calls for expression of interest, and we shall match them against those that are coming. I don't see, in my view, in my assessment, that we are likely to change. There's a very strong indication and reason that we are going to maintain the current leadership. In any case, even if there were mistakes, Parliament and particularly members of NRM should be able to be in a position to straighten our leaders in Parliament. So, I will be speaking more later once people have expressed interest, but I don't see a reason why Thomas Tabiebo, the deputy, and Anita Mong are not returned.
That is Ofwono Opondo. First of all, the NRM honchos are now boldly coming out to campaign against Mao. And when I recently did a video telling you how it will be very difficult for Mao to become speaker, one of the reasons I listed was he doesn't have enough money. If you see different people coming out to fight hard, just know they've gotten something small, because that is the nature of our politics. I know it shouldn't be like that, but that's how President Museveni transacts politics. Even when he wants his own members of parliament to pass something, many of them he first needs to oil their hands. So Ofwono Opondo coming out to say that Nobert cannot be speaker, it tells you 3 things that I want to cover in this video. Okay? Because Ofwono Opondo coming out to speak as a former government spokesperson, he may have a quota to speak about this. He even went hard on the cooperation that was done by DP and NRM, because it's what Nobert waves at everyone when it comes for the speakership. Ofwono Opondo continued to say this.
It is Mao who has said so. My principal from the NRM, Mr. Yoweri Museveni, the chairman of NRM, the president of Uganda, has not told me, I have not heard him say anywhere that these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 elements in the cooperation agreement with Mr. Mao. So Mao may be, and you remember the president has actually rebuked Mao when he talked about a peaceful transition, as if Mao thinks that without that agreement we cannot have a peaceful transition. The president has rebuked Mao. But also, Mao himself has said peaceful transition, election reforms. It is now 3.5 years since Mao has been minister. Where are the election reforms? Where's the law on the so-called peaceful transition? So nobody should take Mao for the words he's talking about. I know he's good at flourish, but that's about all.
That is Ofwono Opondo. And he's right. The cooperation agreement between NRM and DP ended in 2026, because that's how cooperation agreements are done. There's no cooperation agreement that can translate a term of office, and it is the truth. Although I highly think Nobert is way better than Anita Mong 100 times, but the nature of politics Nobert is doing cannot make him be the Speaker of Parliament. So the purpose of this video, I've come to first talk about the speakership race and the statements which were made by Ofwono Opondo, what it means for our politics, and most importantly, the sedimentaries we can learn from the politics of our nation. But before I do this, I want to let you know that if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if you're watching this video from a different platform, please head on to YouTube, type in Sula Mawagri. There's a lot of content of this nature. If geopolitics and economics is what you want, this will be definitely the right channel for you to subscribe to. First of all, whereas it is true that Nobert Mao is the best option when you compare Anita Among and him, but circumstances cannot make him the speaker. It is the truth, because he's not a member of NRM. Maybe if I had joined, okay, if I had joined NRM, it would be easier for Nobert Mao to become speaker, because the greatest environment of the August House ever since independence was Anita Among. He presides over the house emotionally. He abuses members of parliament. She doesn't address them as honorable. He has done a lot of mistakes to an extent of being sanctioned by the outside world. The American government put visa restriction. Dubai, okay, Britain put economic sanctions. So clearly see that is the greatest environment of the August House. But also Ofwono Opondo is raising pertinent issues. It will be very hard for the NRM party, which has the majority of 300 and more than 300 members, because right now NRM doesn't need anyone. And I also think the appointment of Nobert Mao in the 2022, it wasn't about that Nobert Mao was going to bring something on the table. No. It was because General Kaguta Museveni wanted to show that he has the opposition in his hands. I can pose a question. What if General Museveni decides not to appoint Nobert Mao in the cabinet? Do you think anything can change? Do you think he can bring something on the table? And trust me, Nobert Mao is one of the wise leaders. But even his wisdom cannot permit him to work in a dictatorial regime. And the good thing, Nobert Mao knew that. He spoke about that before he joined the NRM government. He used to tell us that General Museveni uses people like Wilbaro, etc. It's the reason why even Ofwono Opondo came out to say that the people who are saying that Nobert Mao is not going to be given the speakership position, that he would have been used. They don't know what they are talking about. In fact, Ofwono Opondo explained it better. I said these statements.
I think Mao is fooling himself. Because if people had believed Mao would have been given a little bit more members of parliament, if people had believed him. But I think he's fooling. He's on his own errand. Even within DP, as you know, the vice president of DP, Mukasa Mbide, has told the public that he is not aware that Mao is running for speaker. So I think Mao is on. Remember that Mao had tried the presidency against Yoweri Museveni twice. What has changed that he went back to run for member of parliament? Do you think he has abandoned his ambition for the president of Uganda? So somebody who has competed with our president and said so many uncharitable things, I don't think by just seeking the speakership, maybe he's seeking the speakership in the hope that he can use that route to gain entry into the presidency. I doubt if he can succeed. But if we have used Mao, then he allowed himself to be used. Because I want to believe that by the time Mao joined the NRM cabinet 3 years ago, he had the hindsight of NRM of 39 years. If he did not understand, then he's the one who has lent himself to be used, and he should not blame anyone, and nobody should blame us for using Mao, to use your phrase. Neither Mao should blame us, nor members of the public should blame us for using him. It is the same thing if somebody says, oh, why are you buying people? You who's being bought, how cheap are you that you are being bought? That after 39 and a half years, Mao lends himself to this dictatorship, the thing he has been calling dictatorship, because the constituent parts of NRM has remained. But you see, there are people who come to NRM for different reasons. Some come for welfare, some come to get a shed, some come to... I don't know what Mao weighed. I think that question should be asked to Mao. After 39 and a half years, what did you see that convinced you that this leopard called NRM had changed its skin. Assuming God calls Yoweri Museveni tomorrow, he will not be there. Is Mao saying there won't be transition? And him overblowing his cooperation agreement, I think I'm using the word, the phrase correctly. I think Mao is overblowing. And who told him? Let him bring the cooperation agreement and we see whether he talks about him becoming a speaker. Mao himself said that his cooperation agreement was for him to be given a ministry. Apparently now he's not satisfied with the ministry. He wants to start picking the fruits by himself. You don't come to my compound and just start picking fruits by yourself. At least you ask me, which fruit should I pick?
That is Ofwono Opondo. And it's true, is right. Nobert Mao, before joining the NRM government, used to tell us about how General Museveni uses people like Awilbaro, how General Museveni is the alpha and omega, how General Museveni has a dictatorship, and nothing changed. Even after 3 years in government, the 10-point agenda and the corporation have never been fulfilled, apart from him being a minister. Because in a corporation, Nobert Mao came out to say that NRM should appoint a DP member as a minister, and that DP member should be Nobert Mao. So even in negotiation, Nobert Mao was so selfish that he put his own name in the DP corporation. It is a reason why even General Museveni is, trust me, uses these people. If indeed Nobert Mao was right to his cause, towards the 2026 generation, they had to sit down to reflect on the corporation, set new agendas before they entered in another election. But for a person to win his election without you, because General Museveni never needed Nobert Mao, never moved with him even in his campaign trail. After winning, you cannot then come out to say that you are part of his win. It is the truth. Because General Museveni knows how to get his wins. But of course, I think, wise as Nobert Mao is negotiating for a position, because I know in the previous parliament, each and every one who stood for the speakership position and failed got another position. Case in example, Taiba wanted to be deputy speaker, he was given chief whip. Other people like Oboth who wanted to be speakership, who wanted to be deputy speaker, they were given state minister for defense, etc. I know Nobert Mao is going to be retained in cabinet, but for the speaker position, is far away from it. And even if you look at General Kaguta Museveni and you put yourself in his shoes, he cannot give such a big position to an outsider who has less than 6 members of parliament, who doesn't have an effect on his win, and fail to give NRM members who are already sitting there. It is the truth. Because the speaker is the third in command. So for me, I think Nobert Mao will be retained as a cabinet minister, but not as speaker. And for me, it will point out the hypocrisy of Nobert Mao, who even despite failing on the cooperation agreement, still waves us to think, to make us think that he is still on the true cause of the cooperation. Now, ever since he joined government, he's on table eating, and people eating don't normally speak. Of course, that's my opinion. I mean, it's truly Mr. Makindi, Kabir Suleiman Magal. If you're into this channel, please subscribe, like, and comment so that I can be motivated to do more of such videos. I'll see you on another one. Peace.